We stopped using straw 3 centuries ago and no longer put it in animals. It's not possible. My name is Christophe Voisin. I have been a taxidermist at the National Museum of Natural Sources since 2001. So taxidermist comes from ancient Greek, taxis meaning arrangement and derma meaning skin. The goal of taxidermy is to bring back the smile and grace to all the carcasses in the neighborhood, to give a natural and lifelike appearance to a deceased animal, to the remains of an animal. My tasks here are to preserve animals that have died in the menagerie or according to the needs of the collections, to take DNA samples and to help with osteology if needed, and also to restore old specimens for temporary exhibitions, or if there is any damage in the Grand Gallery of Evolution, if repairs are needed. It's been on my mind since I was a kid. I was 6 or 7 years old, and it was my grandfather who had a preserved fox in his living room. I was fascinated by the idea of keeping that lifelike appearance in an animal that had died. My career goal actually was to take care of lions and tigers in a zoo, which I did. I worked as an animal caretaker. And alongside that, one day I found a little comic book that explained taxidermy, so I bought it and I started teaching myself how to do taxidermy. On my days off, I practiced with whatever I found, like rats and pigeons. How do you learn to become a taxidermist? Nowadays, there's a taxidermy vocational diploma, but when I started, it didn't exist anymore because there weren't any candidates, so I didn't take it. Nowadays, there's a taxidermy vocational diploma, which my student Germain will take, not next year, but the year after. As for me, I switched from working at the zoo to taxidermy here at the museum. I had 2 mentors who helped me relearn the basics and taught me the trade on the job. The great professor who interviewed me told me, "You know, son, before you become a good taxidermist, you'll have to wait a good 10 years. I thought that was a bit of an exaggeration, but he was absolutely right. It's been 25 years now and I'm still learning. What do my days look like? They're all different since I depend, unfortunately, like any good scavenger, on whatever dies in the zoo or nearby and on the requests from the collection curators. In general, I like doing the skinning, having an animal, thawing it the day before, skinning it in the morning, treating the skin and doing the mounting 2 days later. But there are no rules. Really, every day is different. Nothing is ever the same. What do I have in my workshop? There are lots of tools that are diverse and varied, but very few are specific to taxidermy because there are hardly any. My main tool, the one I work with, is this, a scalpel. With this I can skin animals, I can scrape bones, Then, for everything related to mounting, it's going to be pliers, hammers, screwdrivers, wood rasps, knives for sculpting, that's it. I have only one specific tool, which is a pair of pliers for skinning ears. When you skin any animal, you turn it completely inside out from nose to tail, including the ears, leaving a plate of cartilage with the skin attached. To let the tanning product reach the skin behind the ear, you need to separate the cartilage from the skin, which is where these pliers are used. Insert it and separate the skin, letting you treat its inner side. So behind me is my collection of skinned skulls, every new species I work on. I make a mold of the skull's flesh. First of all, that's what I do in all my mounts. This way, you don't need to include the skull in the mount, since it's a bone that can be a fat source. And fat is an attractant for the destroyers, which are dermestids, little beetles that make holes in the skin. They feed on the fat they smell, and they'll destroy the mount. So actually, I use resin because it's much less appetizing. In addition to the cast with the flesh on it, I have a volume that fits the skin perfectly, so there's little left to do to recreate a face or expression. Most of the work is complete. The only thing I keep when I mount an animal is the skin, quite simply. Everything that is bony now, thanks to 3D printing, and before I could sometimes include bones, especially the long bones of the limbs, which allowed me to reconstruct the muscle volumes to have a leg of the right size. Now, most of the skeletons also go into collections. So if an animal dies, I take the skin, the osteologists take the skeleton, I have the bone pieces scanned, we print them, and it's these prints that I include in my mounting. So it's all synthetic. The only organic thing I have is the skin that will go on the mannequin. I'll go see. Is good. So in this profession, we also use paint, simply because when the animal is completely dry and finished, all the mucous membranes, the inside of the ears, around the eyes, the noses, the inside of the mouths, all of that is totally depigmented. To make life seem less dull, add some color. A bit of shiny varnish on an eye makes it sparkle. Restoring color in an open mouth means you have to repaint the tongue, you have to sculpt the tongue. We don't leave the real tongue inside, it's just a muscle, otherwise it would be all dried out. So there's sculpting to do and painting. So for that I use, well, the airbrush, but I really like working with model paint and small brushes to bring all the colors back. You also need to be a colorist, not just know about animals. You also need to know how they behave, how they move, their possible interactions, and the colors they might have. We do a lot of research when it's not really known to us, at least. My computer has many subfolders for each species I've worked on, holding thousands of photos for inspiration and reference, especially for repainting animals once they're dry. The main challenge is to bring back the appearance of life and make it believable. It's really in the eyes. That's the first thing you notice and focus on in an animal, the eyes. Even the most perfectly crafted animal is a failure if it has a wandering eye. So, the specimen we have here is a tiger. It's a great example of how taxidermy helps us see animals that no longer exist. It's a subspecies of tiger that's considered extinct, which used to be displayed in the endangered species room. It was taken out for restoration purposes, and now it's waiting to be put back in its place so it can be seen by the public again. You can tell it's an old specimen because of the light. For a while, the Grande Galerie was exposed directly to natural light. You should know that natural light causes animals to lose their color. That's why it looks really faded and creamy. They don't have the red or orange color that tigers usually have. That was its natural color. Unfortunately, the photons hit it and destroyed the pigments. As a result, it turned white. It's a sign of its age and past preservation methods that weren't ideal even a century ago. So time is a question I'm often asked about. How long taxidermy can take really depends on the animal. But paradoxically, for a small specimen, I sometimes spend more time than for a large one. There are several different methods for doing taxidermy. Up to the size of a medium dog, let's say a spaniel. It's a matter of volume. It's a technique called stuffing. That means you fill the skin with material like a plush toy. And then you shape it by compressing it to give the appearance of a body. Beyond that, because of the weight of the skin and the way gravity makes the skin fall on a body, we make a sculpture. So here I take measurements from the flayed animal. The flayed animal is the animal without its skin. I take a whole series of measurements and I recreate a mannequin. And here it's a sculpture at a 1:1 scale of this animal on which the skin will be placed. And normally it should fit perfectly down to the centimeter. I have my animal, which is a skin that has been treated. I recreate the limbs with wire. I put my resin for the head inside and I fill it with this material. It's not straw because we haven't used straw for at least 3 centuries. It's wood wool. It's as if we took white wood and ran it through a cheese grater. There you go, it makes wood fibers. It's treated against wood-eating insects. As a result, it's less attractive to parasites that destroy collections. With minimal material, you can achieve maximum volume with this approach. So when we fill it, we don't have to put in 50 tons of material. We can make something light because the goal is still for the animal to weigh less than when it was alive. It remains a collectible object that can be handled. When I make a sculpture, if we're using polyurethane foam, polystyrene, fiberglass, it's much sturdier. All animals can potentially be taxidermied. There are some, unfortunately, even if it's been done, it's not very successful. That's especially true for cetaceans like dolphins and whales. So in that case, we're dealing with animals that have fairly thick skin with a substantial layer of subcutaneous fat. And we can never manage to properly remove all the fat from that skin. And even when that's done, the principle of taxidermy is to dry out the animal. It's about drying the animal. We're dealing with an animal that lives in water, that's always in an aquatic environment. So when you dry it, the skin wrinkles, the fat seeps out. It's never successful. A good mold or a sculpture is much better for this kind of animal than taxidermy. Here we have a shark that probably wasn't this color originally, I think. It's proof that fish taxidermy is really a specialty. I think it's far from the truth. Well, there you go. That exists too. Several animals have left an impression on me during my career. Indeed, one of the first was this Seychelles tortoise from the menagerie named Kiki, who died. They said, Christophe, we're bringing you a tortoise this morning. You need to preserve it. I agreed. I was expecting a regular tortoise. And then they bring in a coffee table. This thing that weighs 250 kilos, a Seychelles tortoise, a monstrous thing. She was 150 years old. It was just, how am I going to do this? And on top of that, the vet came along too, because for the autopsy, they had to open the shell and he couldn't do it at the clinic. So we had to wait for me to use a jigsaw to cut off the plastron so he could do his autopsy while I started scraping. It was epic. In the end, we did it. She's now on display in the Grande Galerie. It's not my masterpiece, but it was one of the first to leave a mark on me. The biggest one I've done is a polar bear that came to me from a zoo, a creature that's 3.1 meters tall and weighs 600 kilos. It's also a great challenge. I was lucky enough to work on 4 large adult orangutans, the adult males, both subspecies, an adult male chimpanzee in perfect health. It's the same. Not many people can brag about having done it, I think. So I'm pretty happy to have done it. I also recently worked on a wolf that was hit by a car in the Fontainebleau forest. One of the first wolves we successfully mounted at the museum was a wild French one. My mentor used to tell me often, think big to achieve average, because if you think average, you'll end up doing something lousy. But the day you're satisfied with yourself every time, change your job, you have nothing left to do here. There's always something you could have done better. The chimpanzee I worked on recently was a challenge. Everyone was waiting for me, telling me, go ahead, take your time, be careful. It's been over 20 years since we've received a chimpanzee, so don't mess it up. I think I fulfilled the task. It's okay. Even though I could have done much better, I'm satisfied. Are there pieces I've regretted making? Yes, actually, there are a few. There are several animals for which I even refused to take credit and asked if I could destroy them because I couldn't accept what I had done at all. They were very ugly. A marotari, a marcord. A marcord is a big wild goat from the Himalayan mountains. The persistent ideas that I wish people would stop, that I wish we need to, that are often associated with this profession is that we use straw. We haven't used straw for 3 centuries. We don't put straw in animals anymore. That's not possible. We use wood, wool, or synthetic materials, but we do taxidermy. And we don't just stuff, we do taxidermy. Another thing, we're not psychopaths. In all horror movies, the taxidermist works in a basement in the dark. He puts straw in the animals' bellies after removing the guts. No, that's not how it works. We're regular people even though we handle death daily. To recreate life's look, you must deeply love life and know animals well. More people should appreciate taxidermy so there can be more taxidermists. Their numbers are declining because it's no longer fashionable, unlike its popularity in the 80s. It's a precarious profession, and it's no surprise that fewer than 100 people in France currently make a living from it. If I have any advice for young people who want to get started, it's courage. Courage, because I think it's very difficult. The coming years are going to be very tough, I think. Obviously, we're dealing with death, we're dealing with animals. These are extremely sensitive topics and people don't always understand. We don't kill animals to taxidermy them. We find dead animals or receive them from others, but we don't kill them. Our job is to bring them back to life. That's what I say. We restore smiles and grace to all the carcasses in the neighborhood. What I like most about this job is precisely taking an animal that's been skinned, that's lifeless, and giving it the appearance of life so it can be preserved for generations to come. Because I work so that my children, their children, and their grandchildren can see my work in the future. This job obviously has a very clear artistic aspect, but also a scientific one since we work at the museum. At the museum, there's conservation for history and species collections. Some species are likely to disappear within a few decades, and we leave traces for future generations of these animals and as close to the truth as possible to show what existed in the past. And even in current scientific studies, we are sometimes asked for taxidermy for various reasons, for research, recently for rats. We were conducting a study on rats in Paris, and we had to preserve a few rats in order to interact with live rats. But we needed rats that looked realistic, preserved, so we could shoot videos and things like that. Does people's opinion about my work matter to me or affect me? Yes, obviously. I prefer that people are amazed or impressed by what I do rather than just laugh at it, of course. Well, the goal of the job is that for a split second people wonder, is it going to blink? Is it going to move? That's when the gamble pays off. If they saw him, they'd say he's stuffed. There you go, it's ruined. In my trade, a stuffer is bad. Is a taxidermist's success about becoming invisible? Exactly. The key is that no one knows we've worked on it. Taxidermy, as I tell my student Germain, it has to be like a snapshot, a 3D photo, nothing more, nothing less. Every taxidermy piece should tell a story that you understand right away. Between a bird that's standing upright, looking straight ahead, standing at attention, and just turning its head a little, making it look up, it gives it a touch of life. And right away, you understand what's happening. A mammal, a posture instead of just being upright, same thing. A slight movement of the paw, a head, you lift the head, right away something happens, you understand what happened. You need to instantly understand what's happening instead of thinking it's just falling over. I think giving it that spark is the hardest part.